start at 9:30 kind of guy. Especially seeing as how I've got like 82 places to be today. But this is the most important to me right now. Teacher looks so tired. Bring that up in their class evaluations. All right, we're going to start with kind of a crash course in the NEOs. I love the NEOs for many ways. That's one of them. Okay, they're made out of the same equipment that football helmets are made out of.
You did that on purpose.
I did that on purpose. So it's definitely, if I was going to hike into the jungle to teach English, I would load my backpack with NEOs. They are a non-internet device. They run off of the same infrared technology that your remote control uses. So during the internet apocalypse, we still will be able to use the NEOs, which is great. Definitely uses abound for all of the skill areas. We use them often, or I feel like they're most frequently used in a linguistic accuracy class, something where you want to be able to have your students produce a short piece of writing and have them type it, but you don't necessarily want to take the time to go down to the computer lab. Now that we have the NEOs, a lot of teachers are moving, not NEOs, the Chromebooks, a lot of teachers are moving more towards using the Chromebooks. I will go to my grave using the NEOs. I feel like they're a distraction light device. There's so little that can be done on them that pulling them out isn't going to create a lot of classroom management issues. It definitely, maybe a limitation that it presents is just the constraint of the window and screen, how much they can write at a time. My perspective is, though, particularly when I'm trying to write for accuracy like we are in a linguistic accuracy class, having that constraint, getting them focused on the writing of the now and not the overall piece of writing is actually an advantage as well. Pretty simple, as intimidating as they might start out to be, you'll learn how to use them pretty quick. On off here in the corner. They run on a couple of AA batteries. We haven't replaced the batteries in a lot of them for the 4 years that we've had them, which again is another great advantage to them. They run for a long time. One of the common problems that you'll have is if a student clicks this applets button, it will pull up these other things that the NEOs can do that we don't ever use. The application or applet that we use is Alpha Word Plus, that's the word processor. So if they come to this screen, you arrow up and down, go to Alpha Word Plus and hit enter. And that's really like the troubleshooting that you have to do when you're using the NEOs. Turning them on, maybe pushing them back towards Alpha Word Plus, which is the word processor. You'll see that small cursor there. Though, if I'm doing a certain activity, I might have a specific prompt that I want them to do, and I can write that up on the board. Or I can actually say, why don't you pick up this prompt, and it's actually going to send a file. So if you hit Command Open, or O for Open, do you want to stay connected to NeoLab Mac 3, or do you want to connect to it? I'm pretty sure that's the one I'm on. Again, Y for yes. Enter. Open from NeoShare.
Mine doesn't work. I opened mine and it had a paragraph.
Mine too.
Yeah, it's probably what was previously written on the device. So this will open up a file in addition to that. If you hit Command Open.
So this is asking if I want to keep that current file?
Just say no. Yep. You train your students to use that the NEOs are for the now. They're not saving anything here. Anything that they need from it, we'll send it into the teacher, and then it will get back to them.
Are you sure what it's doing?
Yes. And then enter. This is what computer life was like before the mouse. Hurry.
Oh, no.
So did you get it that little
Where is this page? That's not big.
Yeah, that one's so NeoShare.
Oh, I said yes.
No.
Oh, sorry.
NeoShare.
It's alpha. Go down.
Then you'll notice that now what you have as the prompt at the top of your screen.
I'm sorry, teacher.
I think we should
Command.
Oh,
Command to open.
Yep. Command O for open.
Oh.
Say
Yes?
no.
No.
We don't
does it just read the last thing you typed, is that right?
I don't know, it gave me an option to just erase it.
Huh?
So,
And I can type now?
And you can type now. So go ahead and actually like form a sentence
Okay.
here. Again, you have to get creative using the arrow.
That's right, I did like. So it had the option of opening from Google Docs. Does that mean we could have them save it and have one other continuously working?
Yeah, and we'll kind of go through what I've done in the place. I've actually never used the Google Docs. That doesn't mean that it wouldn't work like that. I'll kind of show you why I don't.
Is this grammar?
This is grammar. Yep.
I'm just going to all of them, so.
We're getting to that. We'll get to our grammaring.
Well, it would make a difference what I'm hoping to learn.
That's true. It's actually interpretive dance, Jessica. What were you hoping to learn today? When you get 18 of these running in the classroom at once, the clickety-clack of the keyboards can get kind of anxiety-inducing when the student feels like they are the only one not writing. I actually will usually turn on some instrumental music to kind of mask that sound of the keyboard, put them more into a flow moment. Enter. Arrow your cursor all the way over. There is no spell. I don't know how well that spell check works. In linguistic accuracy, we always say no spelling check. That's one of the accuracy components we're looking for. After you've got kind of a sentence, you might want to learn a paragraph, and you can keep writing.
I was really going.
But let's say the time has ended. We're going to hit Command Send. There in the top corner, we're going to send to NeoShare. I always tell my students to give the file their own name. So go ahead and name it your own name. What you're going to see is that the file will then appear here as a file received.
I just pushed send up at the top right. Is that not what I wanted to do?
That'll send using like a direct file transfer. Like you have to be in line. So let's escape. And then you'll send via NeoShare. This helps because I can kind of have the student self-regulate. You know, when I have your file up here, I've received what I need from you. You know, if you don't see your neighbor's name up here, why don't you turn to them and see if they're having a difficulty that you can help resolve. Excellent. Got everyone's. I'm going to save them to a location. If I open on my computer these files, you'll see that they are what's called plain text files. So they look kind of just like this. There's really no formatting. If I want, I can take them from plain text to rich text, which would give me the option to then add spacing, which would be helpful for linguistic accuracy as I want to kind of mark in the space above the line text. And then I can obviously print my files and do my marking that way. Let's envision, though, that I'm wanting to do kind of an iterative cycle activity. And so I want the students to pick up what they had previously done, maybe on a day before. So go ahead and pass your devices to one person to the right so you don't have the one that you wrote on.
To the left.
To the left. I have few failings, not knowing my right from my left is one. So now your students, it's the next day, you're wanting them to start with what they were on yesterday. Here on the computer, I'm going to pick up the files that my students saved. This green icon means that they're available for pickup. So if we turn on the Neos, this might be one that's out of batteries, and then again hit Command O. It will, like last time, ask if you want to save what's there. You can say no. Command O. Oh, keeping the current files, stay connected, yes. Open from NeoShare. It's going to give me a list of files that I can pick up. So the student would select their name from the list. And then open up that file.
How do you open the file? Command O?
Command O. Yep. Oh, and then in return what you've selected from the list. You
I
are...
didn't go to a list.
Yeah, so Command O. You won't have O. Command O. I'm not going to save that what was there before.
Okay.
And then pick it from the list, so you can select Jessica's.
And then Command O, or just
And then
enter.
enter. Okay, so then the students could start where they had left off the previous day and continue to write. And when, from a linguistic accuracy perspective, it's always kind of edit and expand is what I'm encouraging them to do. They've received feedback on what they wrote the previous day, and now they're continuing that expression, now more informed. You feeling okay about these things? Rachel?
What, like on our computer, do we need to download the NeoShare
Great. So if
program?
you're wanting to use your personal computer, you do need to download, it's called NeoShare, and you can get it from Renaissance Learning. It's also on the checkout MacBooks. If you've checked out a MacBook, it's already for you. And it's on most, if not all, of the projector cards. So if you have a projector card, then it's just a matter of plugging in the receiver device, which should be on top of the Neo cart, into your USB port on your computer, and making sure that this NeoShare application is running.
Where is that Neo?
Great. NeoCarts are kept in a couple of locations. Last semester, where we had 4 of the linguistic accuracy classes just using the chapel, we actually kept one in the chapel, knowing that the classes there use them frequently. If they're not, if one hasn't been assigned to your instructional space, the coat closet here on the 2nd floor has 2, and the 359 has 1. And they each should have between 18 and 20 devices.
And the coat closet is James also?
What's that?
Is it the code to the coat closet?
Yes. Yeah.
It's James.
I think that's kind of about it. Again, this was just to show you what they can do, not necessarily knowing that you'll come away from it fully confident to do it yourself. If you want on your maiden run with the Neos, I'd be happy to sit in and give directions. There's not a lot that I haven't shown you today. I actually kind of elevated what you normally do. You were picking up a file, which a lot of times I'll just have my students writing and then sending it in. And they're not necessarily picking up anything before. You can just write the prompt on the board, and then they don't need to pick up a file to have the prompt. And I'll do that a lot of the time, too. Rachel, Catherine? Rachel first.
I just have a question about, I'm planning on printing mine out, like, so I'm gonna write it here and then printing. Is there like a fast way to like print all of these? Or?
Fast is all relative. Considering what we've done here, like, let's respect the fact that, like, we're moving pretty quickly relative to what they would have done back in the olden days. But it's a little bit tedious, is what I would call it. I wouldn't necessarily say that it was slow. So what I can do is I can select all of my files. Let's see. Select the one at the top, bottom. I can open them that way, and then I go through again. If you're marking it for linguistic accuracy purposes, I'll usually make it a rich text, and then send it to print that way. So it does take maybe about 10 minutes for me to go through, convert them to rich text, make them double spaced, and then send them to the printer.
What is convert to rich text?
Good. Converting them from rich text puts them from this plain text form where I can't really use like spacing or formatting changes. Command T changes it to this.
Command T.
You'll notice that the Command Shift T actually, changes them to this RTF file type, which is rich text, which allows me to make that change to 1.5. And again, I'd be happy to show you again. Catherine?
So where they were able to access the previous file, can they access multiple previous files?
Sure. Anything that you make available to them in that pickup space, they can access it. They can only access one at a time, but they could access, you could have 3 available to them and they pick up one at a time and do the task. So for other applications, I'll have them pick up a quiz from the pickup zone. They all pick up the same file, and then when they send it in, it's a unique file to them. So that can be useful as well. If there's something that you want them to type rather than write, but don't necessarily want to take the time to go down to the computer lab, log into the computers, and do the task that way. I think that's kind of about it. Unless there are other questions.
Did you tell us how to make that prompt available to them, like how we initially set it up?
Yeah, so you can do it a couple of ways. You could have their, I just typed it here in what's called the pickup zone. You could also save it as a file and then have the file available to pick up, but typing it there in the pickup zone is probably the easiest. If there's only something in the pickup zone, when they hit Command O and then select Neo Share, it will just assume that that's what you want them to pick up. That's it. Cool. Neos are great. No. Yeah. You wish. You are a Latin
So
student.
you get the award for
Yeah.
the
Yeah, the shortest training.
That is where I grew up.
Yeah. It's my heritage. When convenient. Cool. I'm just going to pull down my PowerPoint and we'll go ahead and move on now to the rest of the training. Briefly, though, this is the theoretical component to what we're going to talk about today. It's really, the application here is more direct to teaching grammar in the academic program, where kind of the measurement of accuracy changes is done through the 30-minute essay. But really the principle here can expand beyond that. I think if we were to plot out what I'm hoping to convey today along 2 axes, we have accuracy on the y-axis and then certainty of what they are trying to say. So as a student, certainty of what they are trying to say increases. What happens to their accuracy? Yeah, you should see that happen. And a lot of the accuracy issues that our students have come from kind of a cognitive demand that's generated from them not knowing what it is that they're trying to say. So if you look at situations of expression that they might be in that are high stress, or that they've never been in before, and they're exhausting all of their cognitive capacity in figuring out what they're trying to say, that their ability to attend to the accuracy of the language that they're using diminishes, and in some cases diminishes greatly. So you have students that you've worked with throughout the semester, you know that they've become more accurate, but because they're not certain as to what they are trying to say, that accuracy improvement that you've worked so tirelessly towards doesn't come through. So that's kind of what motivated the development of this approach to teaching timed writing. Here is kind of a handout. So I've titled this presentation at various stages of giving it a functional approach to teaching timed writing. This morning as I was walking around the gym, I said, it'd be more appropriate if you called it a function-full approach to timed essay writing. So maybe we'll make that change. The emphasis here, functional is not as practical, but it's function grounded. So the students making decisions as to what they write by what they're trying to do with their writing, and you teach them the functions that they want to or that they should accomplish as they're writing. And as they have that really consistent, transferable functional framework for them to write against, their accuracy is naturally going to improve. So they have these linguistic raw materials. They may have a good vision for themselves of what it is that they're trying to do, but somewhere between putting this into this, we get this. And as you're just trying to kind of build as you go without really a sense of what it is that you're trying to do, you're more likely going to end up with this than you are going to end up with this. What our students need really is a blueprint that they can follow, or a framework that they can follow, so that they're offloading all of that cognitive load that could be spent trying to generate what am I trying to say to how well am I saying what I'm trying to say. If we look at a test like the TOEFL, and I'll go through this pretty briefly because I know that there's more applications of interest to you as teachers than just the TOEFL. These are the things that the student must do to receive a maximum score. And this is all from ETS's rubric. So to receive a maximum score, the student must effectively address the task and the topic, both of which are found in the prompt. In green, I've marked the topic, and in blue, we've marked the task. So in this particular prompt, the student needs to articulate whether they would personally support or oppose a plan, using specific reasons and details to support that opinion. Again, that's the task. And the specific topic is, in this case, a shopping center. But if we look at the topic more generally, it's this idea of development or change. And understanding those elements of the prompt help the student to get right at the functions that they need to demonstrate. To receive a maximum score, the writing needs to demonstrate unity, progression, cohesion. Kind of provided definitions of what those things are. This is where we get into the language that articulates the accuracy demands for the student. They need to display consistent facility in the use of the language, demonstrating syntactic variety, appropriate word choice, and idiomaticity. There's this assumed ability to be automatic and natural in their speech. Again, if they are uncertain as to what it is they're trying to do, the likelihood that they're going to achieve this description is a lot less likely. It's important for us to understand and our students to understand that at no point is perfection expected, that given that there's a time constraint applied to them on this type of writing task, that there would be minor lexical and grammatical errors and still receive that maximum score. Most importantly, the task needs to be done completely, and that demonstration of proficiency is what the student's wanting to accomplish. The writings look to be well developed. The student needs to provide explanations, exemplifications, and details. We'll go through the functions that we're trying to accomplish. We'll do these things. And again, it's not something we need to think about once we've understood that framework. For your information and your students' information, their writing on the TOEFL is actually evaluated twice. Once by a trained professional rater, and the second time by an E-rater, which is like supposed to make you feel better that you're being evaluated by a computer program. It scores your essay. Both of those raters are assigned a value from 1 to 5. And as long as they're within plus minus 1 rating, either the human or the computer score, that's the rating that holds. If there is a discrepancy on either end, then they have a second human rater rate the essay. So our students should learn just this truism of human experience. People judge before they actually get a chance to know something. It's just going to happen. So before you even, the words that you've written on the page have been evaluated, your essay has in essence been evaluated, and then the rater's just looking to confirm that initial first impression. So again, to this principle of rating before you actually see what's written, a lot of the judgments that an individual makes has to do with what they see initially on the page or the screen that they're writing on. That shape becomes very kind of predictive of writing performance. What are the assumptions that we're making about this writer, even before we read what they've written?
Paragraph level discourse. Well, it's an essay.
Okay, good.
They've got an, well,
It's
and you've
conforming to these expectations that we have
It's
for what it's
balanced.
going to look on the page. It's balanced. So what does that say about control?
I would expect that there's control.
Good. In terms of utilization of time, it doesn't look like there was a rush or that there was something.
It looks like the ideas are evenly developed.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. So again, I'm coming at this with all of these positive expectations. So what am I going to look to confirm my positive expectations? I'm going to look for things that confirm those. And I'm going to maybe diminish expectations that are more negative. So this is what we'll see in terms of the shapes on students' page. This is a very common shape that we see with placement testing. What do we kind of assume about this student?
Stream of consciousness.
Good. We're expecting there to be a disorder of thought, that there's maybe an abundance of language, but the student hasn't been very well trained in terms of the types of conventions that we would look for in this type of writing. So we come at it with that bias, and we're going to confirm that bias the way that we read. This is like early in the semester. The students learn some of the conventions of writing an essay, but they haven't got a control to where they're master of the time required. So you have this, this initial thought development that's really extensive, and it just kind of gets skinnier and smaller and more rushed. So again, my assumptions are going to be that the student's not in control of time. What's my expectation of accuracy with this?
that maybe it gets worse as you go
Yeah.
down.
The accuracy is going to be really nice at the
I'm
beginning.
creating a narrative where the student, was very thoughtful or maybe overly thoughtful at the beginning, and as that time got smaller and smaller, that control is going to diminish. Call this the full snake. I think the student has learned that their writing needs to be well developed. Where that development takes place is not in the first paragraph, it's actually into the body. But again, you have this control or this time issue where they maybe overinvest in their expression of this initial idea, and that leaves them with less time to put into these other parts of their essay. I'll almost always run into this really early with my students. Nowhere in the rubric for ETS do you see the description that the student needs to complete a 5-paragraph essay. That's not an expectation for them. And what happens often in that attempt is you have this. These two essays are similar in terms of word count, but from the initial perception, and likely when we get down into actually reading what was written, which is the better piece of writing?
The one on the right.
Good, the one on the right. We've got much more development and supportive ideas. We can expect that with that development, there's going to be greater variety of language that's used to develop that and support those ideas. So again, reaching for the 5-paragraph essay until you've gotten to this point is maybe undermining what you're really trying to accomplish. And we shouldn't be telling our students that their goal is a 5-paragraph essay. Their goal is a well-supported essay that demonstrates the full range of their language ability. And they can do that with 2 body paragraphs even better than they can do it with 3. Not to say that a student that couldn't add a 3rd body paragraph here that's equally well developed shouldn't. They can, it's just there's that constraint of time. And can they do it in the 30 minutes? That's what should be expected. Questions about that? Haven't turned over the apple cart. So this is the point that we're trying to get to. It's the functions of each part of the essay that the writer's trying to accomplish. And again, as they have a better idea of what the functions are that they're trying to do, regardless of how the topic changes, they're going to know what it is that they're going to write because they are understanding the functions. And I've written them here. I've introduced them in the order that they appear in the essay, but that's not the order that they'll actually be put on the page by the student. And this is a kind of a counterintuitive approach that I take with my students, and I say that there's the first word that your reader will read is not the first word that you will write. We kind of get at the heart of the essay first. That way we kind of build flow and generate kind of a fluency. Then we tackle the maybe more cognitive or metacognitive demands of introducing a topic. But here are these functions. First, in the introduction, first thing that we're going to do is establish the general topic. We're going to then narrow from that general topic to the specific topic of the prompt and the task that the prompt's looking for. We're going to meet the opponents. And almost, if you're talking about the TOEFL, it's always essentially the student needs to make a choice and then defend that choice. Sometimes they're presented with 2 options and they need to defend their choice of one of those 2 options. Sometimes it's completely open-ended, there's infinite options, but they need to choose one and then defend that choice. And I found that that's just so many rhetorical tasks come down to that function of choosing one thing and defending that choice, that one thing. So in our introduction, we introduce or we meet the opponents to the rhetorical task that we're trying to accomplish. Before we introduce our position, it's important to show our acknowledgement that there were more than one approach. There's more than one opinion on the issue, and we acknowledge maybe a singular virtue of another argument. Then we very clearly state our position, and we summarize the support for that position. And that becomes the thesis for our argument. I get really uncomfortable when we start to use some of this language that makes sense to us because we came through a system where we were learning things like thesis. Like, what is a thesis statement? I don't mean to get on a beanbag chair and be like, what is a thesis? But really, what is a thesis? And to our students, how helpful is knowing that, oh, that's your thesis statement. Okay. Until we help teach them, well, what does your thesis statement do? It states your position and it summarizes the support you have for your position. That starts to make things doable, and not meaning easy, but it means they know what to do. Where those other rhetorical labels like thesis and topic sentence really don't do much in helping them to understand what to do. The body of the essay accomplishes these functions, and each of the paragraphs are going to complete these functions. What we find is that when students have this functional framework that they're following, their body paragraphs end up very similar in terms of development, and also very connected in terms of their flow and organization, both of which are good things for their writing. So the functions in the body that we're looking for the writer to do is first to identify a single supporting idea, we'll call that the SI. Secondly, and this is where I feel like writing instruction really starts to break down, is it's like a paragraph is 5 sentences, it's a topic sentence, and then everything else. Well, that's helpful. Like, what specifically are those other sentences supposed to do? Well, these are the things that they're supposed to do. After you've identified the supporting idea, you need to define or describe your key terms or processes from that supporting idea. Then you explain how this supporting idea strengthens the position that you're taking on a particular issue. You apply the supporting idea to a specific situation, and then you finish the paragraph by restating the supporting idea and reaching back to your primary position. We do that twice. Again, between the first body paragraph and the second body paragraph, we're really not changing what the functional demands are. In the conclusion, these are the functions that will follow. Initially, we're going to summarize the support. We're going to restate the position. And then we're going to identify 3 action steps. I try to explain to my students that you're going to make the assumption that you have so thoroughly convinced your reader that your position is the position on an issue, but now what? What is it that they should do, or what consequences follow someone adopting your position? And we're going to move in listing those action steps from specific to general. We're going to start at the kind of local, individual level and then move out from there. So we're finishing with kind of statements or recommendations that affect everyone. And we'll see that in action now. So I always end up teaching around lunchtime. So this seems to be like a particularly cruel way to approach writing the subject. With this topic that ends up focusing a lot about food. It's an easier topic. I find that when I'm trying to teach these rhetorical patterns, I level down the task and the topic that I'm trying to teach, just because they're going to be using up so much of their cognitive capacity on identifying the functions and thinking about these things of writing, that we keep the task maybe a little bit simpler than anything that they would actually see on the TOEFL. So here's our prompt. Identify the best lunch food for college students. Use specific reasons and examples to support your answer. Again, in blue is our task, and in green is our topic. So the task is, again, to identify the best. Given infinite options, choose one. I'm not going to talk about several lunch foods that are a good idea. I'm not going to talk necessarily about my favorite lunch food. I'm going to identify a singular best, the superlative best. It's one. And then I'm going to support that selection of one with specific reasons and examples. Here, from a topic perspective, the specific topic is lunch food for college students. If we pull back, though, a little bit, in talking about food, we're talking about culture. And that's kind of the general topics that we are addressing in this essay. And that will be valuable when we get to writing our introduction. So initially with my students, I just kind of walk them through this exercise, function by function. The first function that I'm going to do is actually the first S function from the introduction of stating my position. My position is the thing that I am defending. It's my castle. Here, within this task framework, my position is that leftover pizza is the best lunch food for college students. The second function that I'm going to do is identifying some of my supporting ideas. So these end up being the second and third functions. It's in the body paragraphs that I see these functions. Notice I'm not recommending that my students brainstorm or write out notes or craft an outline. That's really inefficient to do that on one space that's not going to be rated. So I tell them, type out your position here on your screen. It's going to be in your essay. It's not going to be the first thing in your essay, but it's going to be in your essay. then these supporting ideas similarly are going to become the first sentences of your body paragraphs. So write them out as sentences so that you have them written out and ready when you go to fully develop the paragraph. But we're brainstorming the reasons for our position. In this case, leftover pizza is quick and convenient. Leftover pizza is cheap. Leftover pizza is nutritionally balanced. We've already had the discussion about 3 paragraphs versus 2, so which 2 do I choose?
I can tell you which ones you chose.
I think the first one will last because this middle one, there's not much to say about that.
So I'm going to choose the ones that I can do the best, right?
Yeah.
And for our students, often that's what can you do the most easily. That's the best for you. If all things are equal, then I start looking at the quality of the answer, and in some ways, diversion of the supporting ideas. I want to show the best range of my language ability that I can, so I'm going to choose 2 supporting reasons that allow me to demonstrate that range and breadth that I have, and maybe choose things that are farther apart. And I can agree that this idea of cheap, what else do you say about it than it's cheap? I think we could puff it out a little bit, but I agree that there's maybe more substance to these 2, particularly ease at hand substance. So that is what I did choose. After the student gets to the point where they start to seem to be able to manage developing 2 body paragraphs with ease and completing the other functions of the introduction and conclusion, say, keep that 3rd one in reserve. Maybe you'll have time for it. At first, though, I just say delete it and just work on the 2 that you're keeping. So if we look now, we have our position. It's on the screen. We've got 2 topic sentences, or first sentences of the body paragraphs, and we're going to develop those body paragraphs next. So we've done the first function of identifying our supporting idea. The next function that we're going to do is define key terms or processes from our first sentence, this idea of being quick and convenient. English language learners are often like, well, the person who's reading this know what I mean. It's like, well, yeah, I know that they know what the term means generally, but what does it mean within your argument? And in some cases, just give them a definition of the word that you already know that they mean, because that's the academic convention or style, is for us to add that definition to what it is that the labels that we're using. So what do I mean by quick and convenient? Well, preparing a lunch of leftover pizza requires no time and no preparation. Am I kind of just stating what I've already stated? Yes, but welcome to academics. Okay, next function, we're going to explain. We're going to explain how pizza being quick and convenient makes its choice as the best lunch food more certain or stronger. So for college students, using their time wisely is the difference between succeeding and failing. A college student who is preparing lunch is better off using that time to study, sleep, or socialize. I'm explaining how this supporting idea makes my position stronger. Next, I'm going to get to the apply section. This is where the students, and I encourage the use of first-person language. They're always really hesitant. Apparently their writing teachers have been telling them not to use first-person language. But when the prompt asks you to use specific examples and reasons to support your opinion, they've kind of been invited to introduce their experiences into their support. Not to mention, when does a student's accuracy levels increase? When they're using first-person language or third-person language? First-person. Yeah. So this is where we encourage them to use that first-person narration that they should have developed a lot of proficiency at, as they apply the supporting idea to a specific situation. So my freshman year, I had early morning classes. Waking up late because of late night studying or socializing meant that I would have to either be late for class or skip lunch. On days when I had leftover pizza, I didn't have to make that choice. I could be to class on time and have brought a lunch. So I've applied this supporting idea that leftover pizza is quick and convenient. Finally, I've got the function of restating the supporting idea and connecting it back to my position. Even ordering fresh fast food isn't as convenient or as fast as packing a lunch of leftover pizza. We look at what's on the screen now. Again, the writer has a position. They have a single paragraph. How does it look? Really pretty good. And I have this other sentence here from when I was identifying my supporting ideas that can now be turned into a paragraph. Again, the first function of identify has been done. We're going to start in on the second function, defining our key terms. Here, this idea of pizza being nutritionally balanced, like we definitely need to make a case for pizza being nutritionally balanced, right? It's counterintuitive. It's not the expected description of pizza. But unlike many other convenience food, pizza contains foods from all major nutrition groups: grains, vegetables, fruits, meats, and dairy. Describe that key term of nutritionally balanced. Now I'm going to explain how does this supporting idea strengthen my argument. Staying fueled and healthy can help a student succeed because a healthy body is a healthy brain. That's just like a PSA waiting to happen right there, right? My position is stronger now because I've given that explanation. Here I'm applying the supporting idea to a specific situation. Again, first person language is A-OK. My favorite pizza is Supreme. I like Supreme pizza because in addition to a whole grain crust, I get several servings of vegetables, including onions, olives, peppers, and the vitamin-rich tomato sauce. Might be a fruit, I don't really know. It just seems kind of pedantic for me to throw that in there. Supreme pizza also gives several servings of protein from both the cheese and the 2 kinds of meat. Restating, particularly in the middle of the day, students are not going to find the time to buy, prepare, and eat a number of different healthy foods found on top of one slice of pizza. Looking at the paragraph, it looks like this. Putting it next to the paragraph, choirs of angels sing because I have achieved symmetry and order out of chaos. Again, in terms of cohesion, they're going to feel very connected because they follow the same pattern. And again, once I've got this functional framework in my mind, all of my time goes and attention goes towards the expression. I'm not spending that energy and time thinking, okay, what do I write now? What do I write now? That was one of the things that really helped me point towards this deficiency for our students was watching or proctoring 30-minute essays, and you just have the student that's like 28 minutes. Okay, few words, delete everything, 26 minutes. Write a few words, keep a few words, 22 minutes. They're trying to do a 30-minute essay in 20 minutes because they spend the first 10 minutes trying to orient themselves to what it is that they're trying to do. From the word go, it's just a matter of checking off the boxes. What do I need to get done? I need to get done this? Okay, I've done that. What do I need to do now? Okay, I've done that. They just go down the list. Okay, now we move back up to what the students often start with, and it shoots them in the foot, the introduction. Okay? They're now primed. They've already spent a lot of time developing, using the language, activating those cognitive centers that are related to this topic, so the introduction should go much faster. What do we have in the introduction? We have at first just the position. Now we're going to summarize our support. We're going to take the supporting idea from the first paragraph, introduce it first, and then the supporting idea from the second paragraph, introduce it second. So we've provided our reader with a map of how our position is supported. We've now written what the reader will read last in the introduction. We're going to move up to what they'll read first. If we want to talk about like ambiguous terms that are used in teaching writing, let's talk about hook. I mean, I know that there's like a visual related with a hook. but it's really hard cognitively for a student to come up with something captivating or engaging on a topic that they have 30 minutes to write about. So a witticism, a quote, or a joke, that's asking a lot. What does the writer really need to do? Well, they need to explain why we would be discussing this topic. And that is capturing. So the first function that we do is establish the general topic. Why is this general topic that's being discussed discussion worthy? So in this case, we talked about how the general topic here is really about food in general and what food tells us about people. So we introduced that general idea. Food can tell you a lot about a group of people. If we want to understand a group, examining their food choices can be revealing. Now we need to narrow to the prompt or the task at hand. As a result, many people are interested in what is the best food for different people in different situations. So now we've introduced this idea of selecting a best. College students are an interesting group to examine in this way. So I've now brought us all the way down to college students and the food choices that they make. Some would say that the best food for college students to eat for lunch is ramen, a salad, a sandwich, or soup. Here, what am I doing? I'm listing out the possible choices that could be made. A lot of prompts will present two choices that they're choosing between. So we identify those two choices. Seemingly fairly neutral. The last function that we're going to do is addressing this counter-argument. This helps students that are like, well, it kind of depends. I want to write about why it's a good thing and not a good thing. Okay, like, you can't do that in 30 minutes. But here's your chance, right, to show that balance between, well, sometimes it's this way. Put it in your introduction, you acknowledged it, tipped your hat to what